You've been looking for yourself in all the wrong places. Not in other people, not in your achievements, not even in your memories. The part of you that holds the key to who you actually are, it's the part you've been taught to reject, the part you were never supposed to acknowledge, the part that carries the opposite of everything you think you are. Carl Jung spent 50 years trying to get people to see this. Most of them still don't. Tonight, I'll show you why the idea you've been ignoring might be the one that changes everything. Jung called them the Anima and the Animus. If you're a man, you carry an Anima, an unconscious feminine counterpart living inside your psyche. If you're a woman, you carry an Animus, an unconscious masculine presence shaping how you think and feel, not metaphorically, not symbolically, psychologically real, neurologically active, constantly influencing how you love, how you react, how you see the world. Most people hear this and think Jung was talking about gender stereotypes. He wasn't. He was talking about psychic balance. The idea that your conscious identity, the you present to the world, is only half the equation. The other half lives in shadow. Not the Jungian shadow, which is your rejected traits of the same gender. This is deeper. This is the opposite you never became. Here's the unsettling part. You don't just ignore this inner opposite, you project it onto lovers, onto authority figures, onto idealized strangers. You look for it out there because you refuse to see it in here. And every time you do, you give away a piece of your autonomy. Every time you fall in love, you're often falling in love with your own anima or animus wearing someone else's face. Think of it this way. Imagine you've spent your whole life strengthening your right hand. You've built your identity around being right-handed. Then someone tells you, your left hand has been there the entire time, capable of remarkable things, but you've been keeping it tied behind your back. That's what Jung is saying. The anima and animus aren't optional. They're not spiritual add-ons. They're half of your psychological operating system. And you've been running on half power your entire life. Jung didn't invent this idea. He gave it psychological architecture. 2,400 years ago, Plato wrote the Symposium. In it, the playwright Aristophanes tells a myth. Humans were once whole beings, complete unto themselves. Then the gods split them in half. Ever since, we've been wandering the earth looking for our other half, the missing piece that completes us. Plato understood something primal. We are oriented toward reunion with what we've lost. But here's where Jung diverges. He says you're not looking for another person. You're looking for another part of yourself. Jung wrote this in 1951. The anima is a personification of all feminine psychological tendencies in a man's psyche, such as vague feelings and moods, prophetic hunches, receptiveness to the irrational, capacity for personal love, feeling for nature, and, last but not least, his relation to the unconscious. Read that again. Receptiveness to the irrational, capacity for personal love. These aren't luxuries. These aren't optional personality flavors. According to Jung, if a man doesn't integrate his anima, he becomes rigid, emotionally frozen, unable to connect. He projects his need for tenderness, for intuition, for emotional depth onto women, and then resents them for it. He builds his whole life around logic and control, and wonders why he feels empty. The animus works the same way in reverse. Jung described it as a woman's unconscious masculine side, her capacity for structured thinking, assertiveness, clarity of conviction. A woman who hasn't integrated her animus doesn't own her authority. She second-guesses herself. She waits for permission. She projects decisiveness and strength onto men, then resents them for having what she's denied in herself. But here's the part that gets lost. Jung didn't see these as fixed. He mapped them developmentally. The Anima, he said, evolves through 4 stages: Eve, Helen, Mary, and Sophia. Eve is raw biological projection, pure sexual fantasy. Helen is aesthetic idealization, beauty and romance. Mary is spiritual devotion, the Virgin Mother archetype. Sophia is wisdom, the anima fully integrated as an inner guide. Most men, Jung observed, never make it past Helen. They spend their lives chasing beauty, romance, the perfect woman. never realizing they're chasing a part of themselves they refuse to develop. And when the relationship fails, they blame the woman. But she was never the problem. She was a mirror. Erich Fromm, one of Jung's intellectual heirs, put it more bluntly in The Art of Loving. The mature person has developed both his masculine and feminine sides, regardless of biological sex. The immature person remains fragmented, over-identified with one side, endlessly searching for completion in another. That's the trap. You look for wholeness in someone else because you won't do the work of becoming whole yourself. And Jung's warning is clear. Until you meet your inner opposite, you'll keep meeting distorted versions of it in everyone you love. For decades, Jung's ideas sounded mystical, poetic maybe, but not scientifically testable. Then neuroscience caught up. In 2014, a research team at Seoul National University Hospital led by Dr. Kang published something remarkable. They used MRI scans to examine brain structure in healthy adults and correlated it with psychological assessments of masculinity and femininity. Here's what they found. Brain volume in specific regions, particularly white matter in the frontal lobe and gray matter in the temporal lobe, predicted whether someone scored high on masculine or feminine personality traits. And here's the critical part. Biological sex didn't determine it. Men with larger volumes in regions associated with emotional processing and relational thinking scored higher on femininity scales. Women with larger volumes in regions associated with goal-directed behavior and spatial reasoning scored higher on masculinity scales. The brain, it turns out, doesn't operate on a binary. It operates on a spectrum. Everyone carries both. The question isn't whether you have masculine and feminine neural architecture. The question is whether you're using it. This is where Jung stops being philosophical and starts being neurological. But the science goes further. In 1976, psychologist Sandra Bem at Stanford developed the Bem sex role inventory. She wanted to measure psychological androgyny, the presence of both masculine and feminine traits in a single person. The assumption at the time was that androgynous people would be confused, conflicted, maybe even mentally unstable. Bem found the opposite. Androgynous individuals, people who scored high on both masculine and feminine traits, showed greater psychological flexibility, higher self-esteem, better stress resilience, and more satisfying relationships. They could be assertive when needed and compassionate when needed. They could think analytically and feel deeply. They didn't have to choose. They had integrated what Jung had been describing for 50 years. The inner opposite. Bem's work has been replicated dozens of times. A 2019 study at the University of Denver looked at emotion regulation. Researchers found that men who could access stereotypically feminine emotional strategies like expressive communication and empathic listening managed stress better than men who suppressed emotions. Women who could access stereotypically masculine cognitive strategies like problem-solving, detachment, and strategic thinking navigated conflict more effectively. The science is saying what Jung said in 1951. Wholeness isn't about choosing one side. It's about integrating both. Here's the link Jung didn't have the neuroscience to explain, but suspected intuitively. The anima and animus aren't metaphors. They're neural potentials. They're capacities sitting dormant in your brain, waiting for you to activate them. When you refuse to integrate them, you're not just psychologically incomplete. You're neurologically underperforming. You're living with half your emotional and cognitive range offline. And the cost isn't abstract. It shows up in your relationships, in your decision-making, in your ability to navigate complexity. It shows up as rigidity, as projection, as the nagging sense that something's missing because something is missing, not out there, in here. So how do you actually meet your anima or animus? Jung's answer was brutal in its simplicity. You stop projecting and you start embodying. Tonight, before you sleep, I want you to try something. It's uncomfortable. That's the point. The inner opposite dialogue. Find a quiet space. Sit down. Close your eyes. Now, imagine the person you've idealized most intensely in your life. A lover, a crush, a figure you couldn't stop thinking about. Don't just picture their face. Feel the quality they carried for you. What did they represent? What did they have that you felt you lacked? If you're a man, was it softness, intuition, Emotional attunement? The ability to feel without shame? If you're a woman, was it conviction? Directness? The ability to take up space without apology? Now, and this is where it gets uncomfortable, ask yourself, what would it feel like if I embodied that quality myself? Not performed it, not faked it, embodied it. If you're a man and your anima carries tenderness, what would it feel like to be tender with yourself? To listen to your own feelings with the same care you wished someone else would show you? If you're a woman and your animus carries decisiveness, what would it feel like to make a choice tonight? One clear choice, without seeking external validation first? Jung called this active imagination. You're not meditating. You're not visualizing success. You're having a conversation with the part of yourself you've been outsourcing to other people. Here's the structure. Step 1. Write down the name of the person you've most intensely projected onto. It doesn't matter if it was requited. Projection doesn't care about reciprocity. Step 2. List 3 qualities they carried for you. Not what they actually were, what they symbolized. Be honest. This isn't about them. It's about you. Step 3. Choose one quality. Ask yourself, if I possessed this quality fully, what would I do differently tomorrow? Not someday. Tomorrow. One behavior, one choice, one moment where you stop waiting for someone else to carry that quality for you, and you just do it. Step 4. Tonight, before you sleep, speak directly to your anima or animus. Out loud if you can. In writing if you can't. Say, I see you. I've been looking for you in other people. I'm ready to meet you here. This isn't spiritual bypassing. This is psychological integration. You're rewiring the projection circuit. Every time you catch yourself looking for completeness in another person, you redirect that energy inward. Not in a selfish way. In a whole way. Jung said the anima and animus are guides. Once integrated, they stop being projections and start being resources. The anima becomes a man's access to emotional intelligence, creativity, and relational depth. The animus becomes a woman's access to clarity, agency, and intellectual conviction. You don't lose your gender. You gain dimensionality. You stop being half a person looking for the other half. You become both. And here's what Jung observed clinically. When people integrate their inner opposite, their relationships transform. Not because they found the right person, because they stopped needing someone else to be their missing half. They showed up whole, and that changes everything. You've been taught to be one thing. Jung is telling you, you've always been two. The part of you that's been living in shadow, it's not your enemy. It's not your weakness. It's your other half. The half you've been searching for in every person you've ever loved. The half that's been waiting this whole time for you to stop running and turn around. Next time, we'll talk about synchronicity, Jung's strangest idea, and the one that might explain why you found this video tonight. Until then, meet yourself, the whole self, the one you've been avoiding. I'll see you in the dark.